everyone, I'm Sophiya Islam and the title of my research paper is Making Places for All, Integrating Urban Villages in the City. I would like to start by sharing one very old photograph of the Connaught Place in Delhi, which is one of the most famous public places in the city, and a recent picture of the same place. What remains common between both of these photographs is the presence of public life. But in contrast, when we look at the same place during the national lockdown, it brings into focus one issue, which is the need for everyday public open spaces, which was fulfilled to some extent by the neighborhood level parks in the city. Another issue which came into focus during the national lockdown was the reverse migration of migrant workers from the city to their villages. And therefore, at the intersection of the need for everyday public open spaces and the lack of sense of belonging of the migrant workers, brings into focus the need to study urban villages in the city. A case study research method is used to get an in-depth analysis of one of Delhi's urban villages called Hosrani Village, which is located in the South Delhi district. The village is currently under immense pressure of transformation as it copes with the rapid pace of urbanization around it. To get an understanding of what the Hosrani village is and how it came about into existence, the village currently occupies about 36 acres of land. It lies along the Press Enclave Road, which is one of the connector streets that connects Delhi to Gurgaon. And across the village lies the Select City Walk Mall, which is a privately owned public place in the city. Inhabitants started settling in around the 12th century because of the presence of Hosrani Reservoir. And with the development of Khidki Mosque, the majority population in the village came to be Muslim dominant. After partition, planned colonies were developed around the village. And slowly, major commercial centers came across the road like Max Hospital and Select City Walk Mall, and further the development of Malve Nagar metro station. Currently, the metro station sees a footfall of about 20,000 people per day who use the Press Enclave Road to transit to these commercial centers, which are Max Hospital and Select City Walk Mall, and therefore they end up moving along the edge of the village. However, the village remains concealed and remains non-porous for the people who are walking along this road. One of the major skills in the village is the pottery artifacts, for which the village has been known for more than 60, 70 years now. These small businesses have come out to the edge of the village because this is the only place where the village gets to meet the city and where there is opportunity for such businesses to thrive. And even today, people travel from all over the city to come to Hosrani village to get these pottery artifacts. There are other pharmacies and eateries also coming up all along the peripheral edge only because that is where the city can interact with the village, and that is where these businesses are thriving in the current situation. If we start looking at the built fabric of the village, the land ownership in the core is with the Muslims and the peripheries are owned by Hindus, Jains and Sikhs. There is a mix of immigrant laborers also who are living in the village due to the affordable rates of housing. And if we look inside, the village appears to be very dense, which is about 80% of ground coverage, and it houses approximately 5,000 people. These lanes have developed organically and therefore wayfinding remains a challenge for the visitors in these locations. These lanes at times open up into such open spaces which are a potential for public life to happen. However, due to the lack of activity in these places, they remain mostly deserted. But if we compare these locations to the narrow lanes inside the village, there is considerable amount of public life happening in these places. However, they remain male dominated. So to summarize, we can say that the village is non-porous to the visitors, it is illegible, and therefore it is unsafe. To understand these opportunities, there are junctions, there are parks, there are vacant lands which are lying there, which are potentials for similar businesses to thrive as what is happening on the peripheries right now. And therefore, with that intention, the vision for transformation starts by restructuring the road to allow easy movement of traffic around the village. Further, identifying the existing landmarks which have some amount of public life around them, and then identifying streets which can become connections to these landmarks and therefore encourage possibilities of accruing economic benefits for the residents of the village. To understand in detail, one pilot project is selected at the center of the village. Zooming into that area, the first step would be to understand the ground floor building use, which comes about to be 85% retail. Then identifying the existing landmarks, creating space around them through mechanisms like TDR and social housing benefits, and further identifying connections and enhancing the connections which are leading to and from these spaces. So once this space is created, there is a need to convert this space into a place where people can go and engage with activities. Therefore, the introduction of a new building envelope makes sense with functions which can be curated such that these become legible and these become inclusive for the entire community. The building form can be made porous to spill over public life into the open spaces to increase visibility with the surrounding built fabric. And there can be multiple iterations as these become placemaking projects throughout the village. To understand how the life will appear to be in the village, one possible scenario is with these three landmarks right at the center, where this is the village Chopal, this is a mosque, and this is a neem tree which acts as a landmark in terms of wayfinding in the village. So with the proximity to the city, this is the Press Enclave Road, this becomes a potential site for cafes to come up, which is already happening in a lot of urban villages in the city right now, like Shahpur Jat and Khospas village. And therefore, once these social and economic benefits are understood by the community, it has the potential of triggering similar changes in different locations in close proximity to the first site of intervention. The second site, which is next to the mosque, could become a potential site where an Anganwadi can be introduced, which will promote the spaces for children where the open space can become like a playground, and similar development can happen in the surroundings, which will cater to the needs of women. Similarly, at the center near the village Chopal, a skill learning center can be introduced, which can become like a celebration of the ancestral artifacts of pottery within the village, where people can learn, people can sell, and this can in itself become a location where the city can come and meet the village, and it will provide a lot of economic benefits, while at the same time triggering such development, enhancing the public life, and therefore building an entire core within the village, which is full of public life and which is full of business opportunities for the villagers, therefore creating a good quality of life for the residents. To understand how this will trigger change throughout the village, there are several precincts within the village because of a mix of communities residing in the village, and therefore there are different landmarks within each of these precincts. So if a similar development happens around all of these landmarks, the entire village can become an active space where the spaces become more inclusive and livable for the residents, as well as these create opportunities of interaction with the city where businesses can thrive and where the need for small public open spaces can be fulfilled for the people. To conclude, I would like to take you through a series of images which demonstrate the current situation where the streets are mostly dominated by men. and the potential of creating them into such inclusive environments by introducing small businesses which are led by the residents, and therefore activating these lanes and the existing open spaces to celebrate the kind of life that the residents deserve, while at the same time also creating opportunities for the city to interact with the village. Coping with the current pace of urbanization, such integration of urban villages can lead to the development of inclusive, resilient, and livable environments in our cities, and therefore making places for all. Thank you.